Thank you, Michael. Welcome back, councillors and staff. Would someone like to move to resume the meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Longley. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're to item 8, Director of Corporate and Community Services report. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first report here is in relation to Council's financial performance as at June 2020. So there's some key performance indicators that are reported here for you. From my perspective, the key highlights to bring to your attention is the capital program of a $44 million program. $40 million of that has been delivered. All contracts have been awarded to deliver on the initiatives contained in the Capital Works program. Secondly, Council's cash holdings in the general fund. After adjusting for the financial assistance grants prepayment that was received in May 2020, at the end of June, Council had general fund cash holdings of $4.1 million, which is, as we had expected, we would have at the end of the financial year. So that's come in on the target, which is quite pleasing. The final one to bring to your attention is that total debtors owed to Council as at the end of June is $5.6 million, and the bulk of this relates to sundry debtors and particularly government funding where we've invoiced for milestone grant payments. So we will expect to see those come through in July and August. So that presents a quick highlight of the key measures there, and that report is provided there for noting.
Thank you very much, Joe. Would someone like to move that report, please? Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any questions or comments, councillors?
I have questions.
Councillor Thomas. Yes, Councillor Thomas.
Director Shannon, this is a question without notice, but I noticed within your report, you have a citation that reads, the final budget for the All Abilities Playground will be subject to a separate report to Council. Considering that when you move on to the next report, it citates in the Capital Works that we've already moved the recommendation as a scope as a whole for 1.875265. Can you give me some commentary around that, please?
Yes, thanks, Councillor. There was intended to be a report on the All Abilities Playground. We originally were intending that to come to this council meeting to provide you with more detail on the scope of that project, where it's at, and the total budget for that particular project. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that report finalised for this council meeting, so that will be coming to the August council meeting. What is included in this report is based on the previous budget that had been adopted by council, and in the next report, being the annual budget for 2020-21, is based on the report that came to council in May, I think it was, in relation to borrowings, where we discussed or we reported on the total value of that project and what borrowings would be required to deliver on that.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Did you have anything further, or was there any further questions there, councillors? Other than that was an excellent report, Director Shannon. Would someone, if there's nothing further, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
The next report at 8.2 relates to Council's delivery program, annual operational plan, long-term financial plan, and the annual budget for 2020-21. Draft documents were considered by Council at the June 2020 Council meeting, released on public exhibition. So the 28-day period has now expired, and we, at the time of writing the report, we had received 5 submissions. At the close, there were no additional submissions, so there was no addendum required to be issued in relation to this report. So the report provides a summary of what those submissions were, and that's detailed there in the report. So based on that feedback, those suggestions have been, will be considered when we're establishing the detailed works plans, particularly around our roads, drainage and footpath works, particularly where there were safety matters that were raised. Based on the feedback that has been received, there's no changes proposed to the documents that were adopted in June in principle by Council, aside from the addition of a detailed capital works program that has been included in the long-term financial plan document, so that it's very clear about what projects are being funded in 2020-21. The annual budget, and which is year one of the long-term financial plan, it supports our community to prosper and grow by improving opportunities and improving livability within the council. It supports the delivery of significant community facilities and priority infrastructure projects. And, you know, probably most notably there is the Corowa Swimming Pool, the Arunna Aquatic Centre building and the All Abilities Playground in Mulwala. It provides for limited increases to rates and charges, so we've kept that to a minimum where we can, and rates are proposed to increase by the 2.6% rate peg that has been set by the New South Wales Government. The budget and long-term financial plan improves the robustness of Council's long-term asset management planning and ensuring that we take a responsible financial approach to our planning. The annual budget delivers a $21 million capital works program in addition to any carry forward projects from 2019-2020. In particular, there's, you know, roads, bridges and footpaths, 2.2 million, sewage and water of $3 million of capital works, and it will deliver on the many community projects that have been funded through the Stronger Communities Fund, the Stronger Country Communities Fund and the Regional Growth Fund. The budget also provides a $38.5 million program of continued service delivery to our community, from roads, footpaths, waste collection, parks, gardens, swimming pools, to mobile preschools, static libraries and mobile libraries, tourism, youth council, all those initiatives that are a priority to Council have been funded in there. So the recommendation before you is to adopt the delivery program and annual operational plan, the revenue policy for 2020-21 and the long-term financial plan as detailed in that long recommendation in the page 44 of the papers.
Thank you, councillors. Can I have someone to move that recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor
Thank you.
Whitechurch. Thank you. Questions or comments? If I could just lead off by, I'd firstly like to congratulate Director Shannon for the enormous amount of work that she's done towards our budget and to ensure that we've got the quality future that Federation Council ratepayers deserve. I think it's just, her and her team have done an amazing job, and I think she deserves a round of applause there, councillors. So to deliver that was fantastic. So I'll now open up for any questions or comments, councillors. Councillor Longley.
I'm not familiar with the final detail for this year's financial budget, but I'd like to see included a master plan for Memorial Park in Howlong, and ask for $50,000 for that. Not increasing the budget, we work somewhere within that, within the existing figures. It was going to happen last year. Money was diverted to Lake Lorena, I'm told, for the caravan park up there. Anyway, so that's my little input for the month.
Thank you, Councillor Longley. Not sure that, anyway, thank you if that's what happened, but I definitely would support that too. Councillor Longmire,
if I may, just make a comment in regard to the number of, or lack of submissions that have come in. I've seen this over a number of years, and so for such a big budget that we've manufactured and had to handle, the number of submissions has been really quite low, and so I think that speaks for itself in regard to the contribution that the finance team have done to end up where it is. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Any further comments there, councillors?
I have,
Councillor Thomas?
yes. Thanks for those forwarding remarks, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely endorse what you've said. I mean, I just want to thank the finance team and the general manager and the directors and our staff for pulling these plans together. As you'll all be aware, I mean, this will form the foundational building blocks to Federation Council's delivery and providing so much transparency for our community. I have two questions without notice for Director Carmichael and then a comment, if that's okay.
Director Carmichael?
Yes.
Are they relating to finance or his
Well, they're
report?
relating to the capital works schedule that appeared.
Would it be okay to,
Yeah,
hold those questions over to his report, if that's
no,
all right?
That's fine. That's
Is it
totally
okay to hold it
acceptable. Yeah, no, that's fine. But I will hold those over. But I just want to make.
Remind you.
that's it's all good. We can totally do that. I just have one other point of call though. In the capital works program, I'm so sorry, Councillor Longley, but you cannot claim the All Abilities Playground. It's in Mulwala, page 11. If we can get that changed, that'd be great. Thanks.
Moving on.
Thank you, councillor Thomas. Any further questions to councillors? Nothing? Well, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? I'm going to slow down a bit, Dom. Against? Carried. Thank you. Sir?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The next item relates to Australia Day 2020. Well, I'm getting my 20s all confused this morning, sorry. The Australia Day Awards provide an opportunity to celebrate all the amazing achievements and contributions of individuals, community organisations and events in the council area. So this report details specifics of the Australia Day Awards program. In particular, as previously agreed, the 2021 celebration will be held in Urannah. So the recommendation before you is to note the report on the Australia Day 2020-21, that we conduct an expression of interest process for community organisations or groups to coordinate and deliver the event in Urannah in January next year, and that we open nominations for the Australia Day Awards. We're also seeking a number of councillors to be on the judging panel to assess the nominations. So as part of this recommendation, I'd be seeking 4 volunteers from councillors to participate in that process.
Excellent. Would someone like to first of all move that recommendation, please? Moved by councillor Longley, seconded by councillor Whitechurch. Questions or comments there, councillors? Well, I might just start off with a little election here first, councillors. We're looking for 4 councillors to give input to awards. First of all, councillor Thomas.
I just want to make a comment about the recommendation. I've actually had the privilege of sitting on this committee over the last 2 years, and I'd just like to thank everybody for giving me that opportunity. I'd like to see someone else have the opportunity to do that for 2021. I just wanted to make commentary about the matrix that we use, and maybe would there be possibility to see some changes within that matrix that is used. And also I've noticed in here that you've got that nominate councillors, insert 4 to the judging panel. I just would think it would be great if we could actually include a representative from the Youth Council also to sit on this Australia Day committee. Would that be a possibility? Thank you.
Doesn't appear to be a problem, councillor Thomas. That's a great idea. So councillor Thomas has refrained from this year's committee. She may have to reassess in a minute, but councillors, would you raise your hand if you're prepared to be on that judging panel? Councillor Longley.
I'll go again, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whitechurch.
I'll nominate councillor Thomas.
Councillor Thomas has been nominated, and I'm certainly, if there's no other councillors, I'm certainly happy to join the committee as well.
And
I had my hand up.
Um,
I had my hand up, councillor, Mr. Mayor, if possible.
Okay, we'll give for Wales. Is there a problem with numbers?
Councillor Law had her hand up.
Councillor,
I'm happy I'm happy not to sit on the committee, considering that there's others who would like to, so that's fine. But thanks for the nomination, Councillor Longley.
Leave it at 5. Yeah, okay.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with 5 and the youth councillor. So thanks, councillors. We've got plenty of names to run with there. I just note that, yeah, it's been decided it's Urana this year. When we started the Australia Day a number of years ago, I think we put out for expressions of interest as to where the Australia Day was held. And because traditionally in the old Urana Shire, each community we used to rotate around then, it would be my thought that when those expressions of interest went out, those communities didn't put their hand up, and that's why Urana was sort of the place of Australia Day at that end of the Shire. So it was Urana, Howlong, Mulwala and Cora was how it worked out. I suppose in the near future we probably should think or give opportunity out again at some stage to if there's any others that perhaps wanted to be included in that Australia Day function. Just a thought, councillors. Okay, well, if there's no further, Councillor Whitechurch.
Yeah, I know that I've mentioned this before at various levels, but this is going to be our first year as a Federation Council that it doesn't fall on a long weekend. Australia Day next year will be on a Tuesday, hence the Monday won't be a holiday. Our previous 3 years we've had it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just some thought about the magnitude and the size of the event and whether it's going to draw people from our inner towns closer, to Cora, Howlong, Mulwala. I think the organisers will need to be aware of that. It's possibly not going to be as big of an event as the previous ones that we've had on long weekends.
Yes, for sure. Okay, councillors, nothing further. I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Agenda item 8.4 relates to Council's community grants program for this financial year. So, this is Council's way of supporting the community to develop ideas, projects and events that contribute to the vibrancy and wellbeing of our community. So, it's a key way that Council supports community members to take on initiatives to support each other. There is detail there in the report about what the actual program relates to, so I won't repeat that. I do have to correct an error I have in the report. So I did have in there that the remaining 27,000 from last year's program would come through to this year's program. Given that there had already been a council discussion that the donation of $15,000 to the Amaranth Foundation would come to the Cancer Centre would come from that funding. That means that $12,000 from last financial year will come through. So that will provide a total grant program of $72,000 for this financial year. So it's recommended to Council to note the grants program for this financial year and the application dates that are proposed.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Longley. Any questions or comments, councillors? All very clear on that?
Just a
Councillor
quick
Meagle.
one. Yes, quick one, please, Mr. Mayor. Just interesting with our current situation and the restriction on gatherings that to hold events could be somewhat problematical. So don't be surprised if there's not a lot of submissions for the first round. We would like to hope that we'll be back up and running by then, but and if so, I think we just need to keep carrying it forward until we can get back on track. But just wanted to everyone to be mindful of that.
Thank you, Councillor Meagle.
I just had a comment.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that over the last couple of rounds, there's actually been a decline in the applicants that we've received. Has anyone received any feedback why we've had a decline and why people aren't putting in their application process for these community grants?
No, no feedback, Councillor Thomas, that we know of. No, but it would be interesting, yeah, for sure. Any further comments there, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you.
Agenda item 8.5 is regarding the establishment of a disability advisory committee. Council adopted a disability inclusion action plan back in 2018, and that contains a number of initiatives to make our community more inclusive for all the people that live here in the Federation Council area. So council officers have been focused on delivering on that plan. One of the initiatives in that is to establish an advisory committee so that council and council officers are more informed about the issues that impact on people with a disability and enable you to receive direct feedback and guidance from community members who are affected by disabilities. So the recommendation before you is to note the contents of the report on the advisory committee, to adopt the terms of reference that are proposed for the committee, and to nominate a councillor to be the council representative on the committee.
Thank you. Could I have a mover, please, councillors? Moved by councillor
I'm happy to
Law.
move it.
Thank you. And seconded by councillor Thomas. Councillor, any questions or comments there?
I have comment.
Thank you, councillor Thomas.
I just going through the terms of reference for the Disability Advisory Committee. I just wondered if, Director Shannon, do you see that terms of reference as a living document? I just feel that once you engage the committee, that they might have opportunity to increase the scope of those terms of reference. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Thomas. I see that it is a living document, effectively that council will adopt terms of reference as proposed today. Then we'll seek expressions of interest to have committee members on that, and one of the key items that they will be doing first is reviewing the terms of reference, and if they think that there's a need for changes to that, then that would be coming back to council with a recommendation.
Would you like to nominate someone now? Would you like to nominate someone now?
Yes, please.
Councillors, so just wondering if anyone would like to be on that, as a representative on that committee.
I'll put my hand up on that. There was one previously we had that fell over, I think, lack of what would you call it, interest. I'm certainly happy to be on that committee.
Thank you, councillor Longley. That's excellent. And I'm sure if there was anyone that really wanted to be on, there wouldn't be a restriction, but if there's no further comments, we'll go with that one. Councillor Thomas, to give
I was just going to say to Councillor Longley that I'm really happy to go as a second delegate. If you can't make a meeting for some reason, I'm happy to be number 2. If you're happy, just let me know.
Okay.
More the merrier.
Thank you, councillor Thomas. That'd be excellent. Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Agenda item 8.6 relates to the long-term lease of the Corowa Aerodrome. As you would be aware, council officers have been progressing negotiations for a long-term lease between Amber Aviation and council for the management and operation of the Corowa Aerodrome. The recommendation here before you was based on a belief that we would be able to finalise the negotiations prior to today's meeting. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to finalise those negotiations. We are continuing discussions, and at the moment we are wanting to ensure that the expectations around the maintenance, the asset renewal and the operation of the aerodrome, that we're clear between both parties, and we fully understand what the implications of any of those outcomes are. So there is still some work to be done. We have received condition reports for council's assets at the site, and some of those assets are nearing the end of their life, and so there are risks to council, and there's risks to Amber Aviation in progressing with those or in signing the lease. So we want to make sure that the expectations are really clear and we understand what council's risk exposure is. So whilst there was a recommendation to note the report and to, excuse me, on the page, and to agree to the terms of a draft lease. We're not in a position to give you a draft lease at this point in time, so I would be seeking that that you note the report on where we're at with the aerodrome.
Might just help out there. Rochelle's got it's a bit tricky with our live stream and our screen here, but she was going to put, I instructed some words that says continue to negotiate the terms to be specified in the draft lease agreement with Canberra Airports and receive a further report as this progresses, but still seeking point on the screen there about point 4 was council confirming their support for the stated approach to the funding of the required airport over the next 4 years. I think we can still move forward on that one. It's unrelated to the negotiations. It's a council budget proposal, and to still issue the joint media release with more of a progress update of it. So if that was helps the council move forward to allow the discussion. That's all right, Mr.
So,
Mayor.
first of all, get a mover and then we'll work the recommendation. So would someone like to move that recommendation, please, councillors?
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Whitechurch, seconded by Councillor Longley. Questions or comments? So, councillors, for some clarity there, we're recommending that the council note the report, number 1.
And I can read out point 2.
Thanks. I'll hand it over to the General Manager to follow up with that.
Yeah, I do apologise. It's just a live streaming issue. We can't get the minutes altered on the spot, but Rochelle's got those as taking now. So point 2 would then read that council continue to negotiate the terms to be specified in the draft lease agreement with Amber Airports Proprietary Limited and receive a further report as this progresses. So that would be point 2. Point 3 would be that council confirm their support for the stated approach to funding of the required airport tarmac improvements if any further grant applications are not successful, to an amount of $436,348 in total to be delivered over the next 4 years. And number 4 would be that council issue a joint media release with Amber Airports Proprietary Limited to provide an update on this proposal. So that was
Thank you, councillors. Yeah, needing any clarity there, councillors, tonight? Councillor Longmire.
So as it's been read out by the General Manager, the recommendation is okay without an amendment. You're happy to go forward?
so sorry, yeah, to make it clear, the one on the screen now is not what we've recommended. I've read out changes to that. So number 2 comes out altogether about agreeing to terms. It's just to continue to negotiate. Number 3 comes out, which is the common seal, because we've not got the lease finalised. Number 4 stays in, and number 5 is just a progress media release. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to move an amendment to the effect of what Mr. General Manager's read out, or are you happy with delete it?
Yeah,
I think the way we've managed it, we didn't move that one. So I think,
so we can go along with a completely new recommendation if councillors are comfortable with that. If they're not and need any more clarity on that, please say so. But there's the old recommendation that's in front of you is null and void. We've got a new recommendation that's just been read out to you.
Yeah. And moved and seconded.
And we've got that one moved and seconded. So, Councillor Longmire would, I got a move and a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Whitechurch, Longley.
Whitechurch and Longley, yes. So any further questions, councillors? So we've got a new recommendation, not the one you've got in front of you. If anyone would like that read out again, that's fine. Please speak up. No questions or comments?
So,
I was just going to say,
I think we're clear with Councillor Thomas.
Councillor Thomas?
would you mind just reading it again, just for clarity, please?
Sure. So point 1 would be that council note the report on the long-term lease of Cora Aerodrome to Amber Aviation. That council continue, point 2, sorry, that council continue to negotiate the terms to be specified in the draft lease agreement with Amber Airports Proprietary Limited. So the top line, actually, it's Amber Airports Proprietary Limited, and receive a further report as this progresses. Point 3, that council confirm their support for the stated approach to funding of the required airport tarmac improvements if any further grant applications are not successful, to an amount of $436,348 in total to be delivered over the next 4 years. And point 4, that council issue a joint media release with Amber Airports Proprietary Limited to provide an update on this proposal. So that's what's been moved and seconded for discussion now.
Thank you, councillor Thomas. Councillor Whitechurch.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think that clarifies where we're at as far as the further negotiations. I think it's important that we make note that we are progressing along with Amber Aviation, and this decision to get the lease exactly right is the benefit of both parties. We're effectively looking at potentially upwards of nearly 100 years of lease of the airport if the options are taken up. So I commend the staff for going down the track and meeting continually with Amber Aviation, because obviously Amber Aviation are in the same position. They want to make sure that they've got everything right and that they're going to be in a good position to move forward with the amount of money they're willing to invest. So I take my hat off and I support the further recommendation to get the lease right and whatever it takes. So let's move it forward. Well done.
Thank you, councillor Whitechurch. Any further councillors? I might ask the general manager to make a comment.
Yeah, so as Director Shannon outlined, negotiations are going really well, really positively. So it's really about us and Amber putting a lot of work into, I guess you might say, the final 5% of the document, which essentially makes up everything, and that's around those capital investment requirements going forward. But in being all reality, we know that aerodrome does have some issues that needs upgrading or replacing around drainage and tarmac. So I've been really clear that council have got some work to do going forward as well. But yeah, Amber Airports are still really excited about the proposal, as are we. And we're just really doing our best as well as they are to ensure we can have a document that we're all comfortable with. When you go back over the last two years of this process that's gone on, things have moved a lot as they do in negotiations of this size, but we're really clear that it's still very consistent with the original intent around those lease terms. It's been through council before, around those rent-free years to give that company the foothold in there, but in recent discussions as well, really important that we better understand their ability, particularly with things that change over time about what they would need to be operational in that facility. So that could involve a handover period even when the lease is affected, of where they would obviously need some infrastructure out there. The airport doesn't have any infrastructure at all of a standard that would allow any company, to be honest, to walk in and start renting and building off us. There's the terminal and the jump shack buildings they've got some issues in themselves. They're not major dollar item issues, but they come to a point of why would you even renew? A couple of those buildings are not really worth renewal, to be honest. They need a whole replacement. So Amber's very upfront, and so are we about that. We want to present in a joint partnership, that would be going forward, some new infrastructure out there. So there's sort of two parts to what we're up to, looking at what is out there already and whose role that is, but also going forward, some really good negotiations can occur as to how we get some new investment into the facility. And bearing in mind, it's going to be a public airport, for years to come. That was the council's always intent. So long-term lease, but a public airport with that anchor tenant that can hopefully trigger some other investment as well. So we're going forward really positively at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, and I'd have to thank and congratulate both the council and the staff and Amber Aviation for being so careful and managing this lease agreement. It's a big commitment, but it only leads to a harmonious future, and the way that all parties have kept other interested parties at that facility has been fantastic. So we look forward to finalising the lease agreement as soon as we see it's spot on. So thank you. Any further comments there, councillors? Councillor Longmire.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mayor, in regard to the time frame that's been asked for to get the situation where everybody, certainly in council, as councillors, we understand it completely. The airport's been there for over 80 years, and so another month or whatever is not going to make a lot of difference in the bigger picture, especially when you're looking at the long-term lease of what the future is going to be. So I'm very happy that it's been assembled as such through the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Longmire. Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I shall put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And thank you, Mrs. Shannon,
Thanks, Mr.
for your
Mayor.
report. We'll now move on to item 9, the Director for Development and Environmental Services report. The first one being 9.1, building approvals, complying and construction certificates approved. There's a recommendation there, councillors, the council note the report on construction complying development certificates issued since June 2020 ordinary council meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by councillor Longley, seconded by councillor Whitechurch. Any questions or comments here, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. 9.2, development applications approved under delegated staff authority since June 2020 ordinary council meeting. There's a recommendation there, councillors, that that council note the report of the development approvals and have determined under delegated authority by the granting of consents subject to conditions since the June 2020 ordinary council meeting. Can I have a mover, please, councillors? Moved by councillor Thomas and seconded by councillor Whitechurch. Any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. 9.3, regional and state significant development applications. Recommendation that council note the report on regional and state significant development applications lodged. Can I have a mover, please, councillors? Moved by councillor Wales, seconded by councillor Longley. Any questions or comments there, councillors? Not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Director Appleyard, for your report. We'll now move on to item number 10, Director of Engineering Services report. Thank you, Steve.
Item 10.1, Mr Mayor, is just the report of works carried out during the month of June 2020, which is there for notation.
Moved by councillor Longley, seconded by councillor Whitechurch. Any questions or comments there, councillors? Councillor Longmire.
Yeah, if I may, Mr Mayor, bring to the director's attention that some of the roads that need grading are badly in need of grading since the activity of the farming sector's been going full stop. And so it's come to a point there, as soon as some of that remedial work could be done, it'll be very much appreciated.
Thank you, councillor Longmire. Any further questions or comments there, councillors?
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Thomas, you're welcome.
I just wonder if I could take this opportunity to follow up with Director Carmichael. There's a couple of questions in and around the Capital Works program that appeared within our budget papers from Director Shannon's report. Would that be okay if I ask those questions now?
Yes, and we'll answer them or take them on those things, councillor Thomas. That's fine.
Director Carmichael, I just had a couple of questions in and around the detailed capital works for 2021 that appeared in our reports for today's business papers. And one of them was around the Federation Way grant application, and the other one was around the resheet program for unsealed roads. If you could make comment or get back to us, that would be great.
The grant application for the works on Federation Way, I presume you're talking about the 202,800,000. That's an ongoing grant that we already had this year. That's a $5,050,000 all-up grant for rehab, rehabilitation and resealing of 23 Ks from Miranda back down towards Urana, which virtually gives us a finalisation of the works from Urana up to the Newell Highway. So that's simply a carry. Well, it's not a carryover. It was split over 2 years. So we got half the budget in the current, or just the one that's just finished, and the other, the money that's in there is a little bit of a carryover plus the remaining 2.5 million or thereabouts. The gravel resheeting would probably normally, I would have, well, there's a debate between us all whether it should be in there or in capital or in operational, but it's in there, and that's just pretty much, we do that every year. That budget's pretty much the same each year. So it's just for picking up gravel resheets. We try and split it north and south. Not that I'm allowed to use those words, or try not to use those words, south, but we try and spread it over the whole region. So the two grader crews up north basically get through half the expenditure and the 3 down this end, get through the other half of it.
No worries. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, councillor Thomas. Any further questions or comments there, councillors? Not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against?
Item 10.2, Mr Mayor, is the report on the capital works, which is ground to a halt probably before this report because we sort of got fairly carried away and spent a lot of money. But it's just a summary of the years where we got to with our capital works programs. You will see that there are work halted beside a few items in that report, but generally we got through the majority of it. And the weather just turned on us. Well, from a farming point of view, the weather probably turned to the better for them, but for construction, it turned against us at the end. But that's life.
Thank you. Can I have someone to move that
So moved.
recommendation? Moved by councillor Meagle, seconded by councillor Longmire. Any questions or comments, councillors?
Just in regard to the weather, a good time to service all the equipment.
Mr General Manager.
Oh, just a quick thanks to all the staff, the team, but especially Steve and down through the engineering and the capital works across other areas too. But to have a capital work program for 1920 of that amount and to have that much completed, I've never been at a council where that's ever been undertaken and delivered. I know the weather worked for us. A lot of that, but the enormous amount of ability in the teams to go out and get those jobs done, and our project management's always improving. It's always a challenge as well, but I think it just needs a notation, just like our finance work as well. That delivery side has been enormous through that last financial year. We'll never see a program of that size probably again, but I know this one coming forward is 20 odd million, but yeah, terrific effort.
Yeah, and I'd like to convey my own words. I think that not only the amount, but the quality of the work, and particularly Federation Way, I get so many comments in the quality of the work that's been carried out. It's just amazing, and as I say, the amount of work that's been completed, just the can-do attitude is unbelievable. So I won't leave you out, Mr Director. I think we should give you a round of applause as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. They tell me the Widgie War S-Bends, as we were calling them up then, is now the Widgie War Freeway.
Yeah, they are.
Watch the emails out there.
Item, you finished it, I'm sorry?
I think I did, didn't I? Did I put?
Haven't put it yet.
Did I? All in favour, councillors?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Item 10.4 is a report on the Balldale water supply. This follows on from a meeting that we had at Balldale quite some time ago. After that, we re-engaged consultancy company GH&B to go back and they had done an options report.
Oh, sorry, missed three. Yeah.
Oh, minor detail.
That's all right.
All right.
Stronger country communities.
We'll go back to item 10.3, Mr Mayor.
You're a bit flat. I understand you're a bit flattered by that applaud. So
Yeah, I
that's
don't
fine.
get applause very often in my job. So I get a lot of other things, but not especially one from Balldale the other day. Item 10.3 is a report on the Stronger Community Funding Program, which is coming to a conclusion. There's probably only one or two of those that are left that are certainly since this was written. The Rennie job has now been completed. Obviously, the pedestrian bridge is underway at Urana. Talking yesterday with Ben about the Oakland Rec Ground change room. I think he said that'll be finished in a couple of weeks' time. Lonsdale Reserve, the others are completed, and the Howlong. I don't know whether the Howlong one's on this one, is it? Yeah, the Howlong multi-purpose, all that is also all but completed. So probably apart from that, probably from going forward, there'll only be one or two items on that report until we finish those off, which the rest of them are finished.
Thank you. Can I have a mover for that recommendation, please, councillors? Moved by councillor Wales, thank you. Seconded by
Second.
Councillor Meagle. Any questions or comments, councillors? I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against,
Aye.
carried. Carried, thank you.
All right, I'll continue on with 10.4. Like I said, we did get GH&D to come back and do a further feasibility study on some options. And you will see in there, they came up with 5 options as ways that we may be able to improve the water supply to Baldale. And I won't go through them in detail. They're laid out in the reports there, and the costings are there. There is a recommendation there that on the report, we're also recommending that Baldale water supply scheme be transferred from the general fund into the water fund. And with the $200,000 that we have out of the drought money, we'd like council just to approve putting a new test bore down near the existing one to see if there's any aquifers there at greater depth. And then if that's not feasible to continue with, we'd go back, and we've already done a test bore about 5 k's to the south, which gave very good quality results when it was done a number of years ago. I'd like to use the rest of that money to rejuvenate that. It's been capped off at the required depths below, just to rejuvenate that and perhaps get it ready to make it as a future supply for Baldale down the track.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Longley. Any questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Longmire.
If I may, speaking in the undertaking that's in the report as a really sensible attitude to go forward with the available funds currently, because it's never been an opportunity to go down to what we call the second water at the current site for whatever reason. And so that's a really good option to be able to make that opportunity realistic. And then certainly with the recommendation of, I think 3B, I think it was 3A, is it? The further down for the 5 kilometres further down, they're the 2 best options, and doesn't take any water away from the communities of Corowa or Howell. And so I think it's a really good report outlook at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay.
Item 10.5 is just an update report on the waste strategy update, an organics recycling project, which I think the report's pretty much self-explanatory. Just this is a program that the strategy is something that's been going on for quite some time now. There is another meeting, I think, scheduled for middle of next or late next week to continue this. And at the end of that, there is some recommendations. There, note the waste strategy update and organics project development. The council support further development of the project for potential organics recycling facility, and the council approve allocation of 80,000. I think I mentioned at the briefing the waste management reserve got 80,000 in it, but don't know, Joe, whether we had anywhere we could get the 80,000 from. Do we need?
Anyone, Poto?
What about in the 2021 budget?
Yeah, that proven allocation of 80,000 from the current budget for the purpose of further developing the project.
Thank you. Can I have someone move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Whitechurch. Is that correct, Councillor Whitechurch? I just can't see your hand there.
That's correct.
Good boy, Mr. White.
Okay.
Can I ask a question with clarity?
Comment, yes.
Comments.
Councillor Longmire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regard to the opportunity to shift $80,000 from the road reserve, is that true or not? The understanding?
It's going to have to come from somewhere. So
About certainly the roads need the funding, and our core industry is roads, rates and rubbish. And so at the end of the day, in that order, not rubbish, rates and roads. So for that preference, I am voting against the opportunity to shift 80,000 out of the road fund.
It'll actually come out, we have a road reserve at the moment, so it'd come out of that reserve, not out of the current funding.
If I may say with respect, Mr. Carmichael, use that extra money on the roads.
Okay, I'm just saying that was where we were gonna, that was what we did discuss the other night, so, yeah.
Okay, any further questions or comments there, councillors?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Just to get clarity on point 3, then we just need to make sure that we don't have, again, because that's fixed that screen, but we need to make sure that that councillor, especially Councillor Longmire knows, it's not going to be from the waste management reserve in the minutes, it'll be from the 2021 budget. And then that would have to be sought, like there's another project as well we talked about where we need funding for, and that'll have to be sought within the budget as we go forward.
Or, yeah, or the council approve the allocation of 80,000 from waste management reserve, which is none. Yeah, so if you change the budget and we just vote on it, or do you want to actually name?
It would show up at the quarterly
With the funding?
adjustment.
Yeah, it'll show up as a variation, it'll need to be sourced from
Okay,
somewhere within that, and as we're,
But it may be that we source it from a reserve or something at that time, but we'll report back to council on that.
councillor Longmire?
My understanding is that in waste management detailing, it's cost effective, meaning that whatever the required amount is to operate waste management, that the charges are assimilated in that area, the same amount, whatever it costs. Understanding, do we not appropriate for this opportunity for the 80,000 to increase that rate charge for the waste management?
I think, yeah, I can see that point. So within the 2021 waste management income that we're going to receive off that waste levy off everywhere else, what you're saying is the waste reserve's empty now, but it'll be built up this year. Sure, the amount, I don't know the amount, but you'd much rather it, if it's going to show up, we spend less on a tip covering the waste, whatever it is, if we're going to spend 80 on strategy.
That's correct. Thank you.
The reason that the waste management reserve's been run down was to get the tips and everything back up to a standard again. We've certainly spent a huge amount of money out here, just getting it back up to an acceptable standard for the EPA.
Yeah, I accept that, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
On our tail at the moment, so we've got to be very careful. Yeah, we did it how long as well, and there's still money on spending at others. So the EPA is sort of in a basing after us mode at the moment, so we've got to be very careful.
So, councillors, we might just so that you know that recommendation, that point 3, the council approve an allocation of 80,000 from
Within the waste
within the waste
2021 budget.
Budget, yeah.
I'm getting
clear on that, councillors. Hey, clear on that change. Who moved the mover and seconder?
It's Longley Watcher.
Yep, clear on that.
From within that, but yeah, budget. Any further comments or questions on that?
I have a question.
Yeah, councillor Thomas.
Director Carmichael, this is a question without notice, but originally when we looked at the renewing the waste strategy and updating it, there was a community consultation process. I remember just reading some feedback that included the options around hard rubbish, and for residents who may not have the avenues to get those items to a waste facility. Is there some consideration to include an annual hard rubbish collection as the strategy is pulled together? Thank you.
That's certainly a consideration that will be taken on board. There's a whole series of those issues that need to be taken on board. So as that strategy heads towards finalisation, yeah, those considerations will be taken into account.
Yeah, and I believe it's a very expensive one, but one that is probably necessary in a lot of places. Just want to comment that Tony Brentala has done an amazing amount of job, and it's reflected by this report. No one probably needs to know that how important waste is going to be in our future with the what's happened with the China sword. We've got to be responsible for our waste. A lot of our tips are needing rehabilitation. We have to source new ideas. We're trying to, as well as the waste strategy, we're trying to take pressure off the cost by trying to be proactive and sourcing opportunities from not only our council but other councils, which has been very positive. So the waste does fit into our criteria as a council, and I'm so glad that we are being very active to try and get some answers rather than just push our waste onto somewhere else. The idea is to, even if we can be cost neutral, create a bit of employment and push it to see where it may lead us into the future. Certainly green waste is a big start, and we're working, talking to other councils in conjunction with that. I mean, it's all been very positive. You would have heard earlier in the day about the waste conference in which falls straight after the local government conference, is a follow-on from this waste committee and where they want to end up. So Tony has been looking for the support of council to see where we sat, and so he can keep putting his efforts into it, which has been fantastic. So I thank him and all involved. I did see a hand up there, Councillor Whitechurch.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing some of your comments there, and I think for the other councillors that aren't on the waste committee that was formed some time ago when council elected to go down the path of investigating what we can do, whether we can be a regional waste facility. That committee, which myself and Councillor Longley and obviously you, Mr. Mayor, sit on with our consultants and Tony and his team. I think the urgency of the $80,000 and the reason that we need that approval now is that the government is moving and they're talking about issuing funds and looking at places that are already well into the process, not people to start up now. We're well ahead of the game, and for something to get this project into our Shire area, as you said, it's going to be the big thing with recycling, and let's continue our push as we did when we made that recycling committee to be a regional centre. So I support the recommendation as it will be.
Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch. If there's nothing else, I'll put it, councillors. All in
Aye.
favour? Against? Carried.
Item 10.6 is Australia seeking to extend their water supply agreement on September 2010. The recommendation is there that we extend the existing water supply for a further term of 5 years.
For the recommendation, who'd like to second it?
So second.
Councillor Longley?
I'll put Wales down.
Councillor Wales? Councillor Wales, seconder. Questions or comments, councillors?
Just if I
Councillor
may,
Longmore.
give respect to the opportunity again, because it is so important to our council area and not just the community of Cora, but such a big player in our economic featuring, and so to continue on is a good call.
Thank you, Councillor Longmore. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it.
Good.
All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Item 10.7 is the replacement of 3 crew trucks for our Grady crews. And it's been going backwards and forwards. This was one that's been going on for some time, and there's a fair bit of background there. In the end, we did get 3 tenderers to put in offers, and it was recommended that councillors defer that to confidential section of council.
Thank you. Would someone move to defer, please, councillors?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Wales. All in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carmichael, for that report. That concludes your report. So we'll move.
I might just sit here, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right.
Yeah.
We'll see the local traffic committees on the agenda shortly.
Absolutely, for sure. So now we'll move on to item number 11, notice of motion, question without notice. There'll be no items. Reports from committees. This 12.1 is a local traffic committee, and there is a recommendation there that the minutes of the local traffic committee be held on the 12th of May 2020 be adopted. Can I have a mover first, please? Moved by councillor Whitechurch. Thank you, and councillor Wales, seconder.
Thank you.
Questions or comments? Councillor Whitechurch, was it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, my lovely committee that I've had a little bit of trouble getting to terms with how they roll, but I've got to the point now, Mr. Mayor, where adopting these minutes, obviously this traffic committee is a statutory committee and they're made up of the RMS or, and the police, but we are adopting these minutes every time they come through, and basically everything that they've put into those minutes is to be followed through or based on. We've never argued against it, we've never gone against it, but I just can't understand why we have people that aren't from within. Now, I went back on the internet a few years ago. The local police were always on that committee. Now, we've got a police officer, no disrespect at all, that sits on that committee from Albury and then one from Holbrook, and I appreciate that's probably they've been assigned. I've no problem with Justin Clancy's got a representative in Gary Porter who would know the local roads better than most people as well. But we've got Councillor Wales sits on there as an observer, and he's been over 41 years in the police, driving the roads, and he doesn't get to vote. And we've got none of our council staff with authority, like Steve Carmichael and those sort of people. I think the whole committee needs to be reviewed, and I'd like to add that to the recommendation that the committee is reviewed and other people are added onto the committee, like Mr. Carmichael and the additional councillor, including local police.
Okay, thank you, councillor Whitechurch. So you'd like to, who was the mover? The mover was.
I'll second his motion for that.
The mover of the recommendation was councillor Whitechurch and Wales. So you're going to put a point A to that recommendation, councillor Whitechurch?
If that's how you'd like to deal with it, Mr. Mayor.
Point B. We'll just get some wording around that, and if you're both happy, we could probably move on from there. So would you like to word it, please, councillor Whitechurch?
Well, the committee be reviewed with the chance to include the local police as a voting member and adopt additional committee people, including another councillor or staff, or Mr. Carmichael, something along those lines.
Okay.
Quick question of councillor Whitechurch. Would you not consider a councillor as a voting member?
Can be.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I'm not sure the legalities of that. Mr. Carmichael or the general manager might be able to help there, but from what I can see, the statutory requirements are for the four, being the RMS, the police, the local members representative, and a council person. That would, if there was a fifth, come on as a voting member, I guess, or our representative Lee Ashford. I'm not sure how that sits. I'd like to have a fifth in here.
Councillor Whitechurch, I'll ask General Manager if he might make a comment on that.
Yeah, certainly, and our director Carmichael knows the process too. But where we're up to right now may be Councillor Whitechurch Wales that we note the minutes of the committee. But point two would be to review the local traffic committee and seek to include. So putting seek to include at least lets you consider those others. So seek to include additional councillors and staff and local police on this committee.
Yeah, happy with that.
And that way I can let director consider it.
You're only allowed to have 4 voting members. That's the way it's constituted. So Lee Ashford, who's our manager of operations, lives in Howlong and been in the industry all his life. He's and I prefer Lee to stay there. He's got a very sound knowledge of engineering. I think I've got enough on my plate. I mean, I've been on these committees on and off. I'm not 100% sure how the police, I know generally one police does a whole zone, so it's not, now we could talk to the police about that and see what but they have their own way that they man or elect their representative onto the committee, but you can only have 4 voting members. There's no way you can have, if, for instance, there was an issue in Mulwala and you wish Councillor Wales to vote, I think under my understanding, you could say that he would be the voting delegate for that particular issue, and Lee would drop off and doesn't get a vote. And if there was something somewhere else that Lee had the knowledge of, and so your other delegate didn't, you swap around. I've read in the constitution of traffic committees where that can be done. And the local member, it's up to the local member who he elects. So it is fairly restrictive, but certainly if you wish to head down that track, I don't have any hassle with that.
It's certainly fine to make a recommendation. It gives you a bit more scope, Councillor Whitechurch, so it probably covers what you're trying to achieve off there, really.
Yeah, look, it may not be at the committee level that the problem is, but you know, you look here in these minutes that were presented, and the meeting on the 12th of May was held by email. How can you hold a meeting by email, and the meeting before that was in March, an emailed meeting, and then there's these, you know, things come through that includes, believe it, Door Street intersection that is 2 years old. On the 21st of September, we were presented a petition from Sue Curtis 2 years ago, and then councillors are getting presented a workshop of how to fix it this afternoon. My God, 2 years? This committee, maybe it's not the people on the committee, maybe it's the process, I don't know what it is, but it's, dysfunctional, something. Something's got to change.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch, and you've started off a bit of direction of change there, so that's always positive. Would there be any further comments before we've amended? Well, no, we've the recommendation.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Councillor Thomas.
As my fellow councillors will be aware, as an elected LGA representative of our community, a high portion of our conversations are in and around traffic issues. You know, when I first started this journey, I used to say, oh, we have a traffic committee, right to the traffic committee. Or mention it to my fellow councillor Wales, you know, as delegate. He could take that to the traffic committee. Like, I was quite excited to think we had a traffic committee. But as the journey's progressed and 3 years on, I can absolutely see that this traffic committee is not really coming to fruition with some of the recommendations. They seem, as my fellow councillor Whitechurch has mentioned, they seem very slow for whatever reason. And I'm thinking along the same lines, there absolutely needs to be a review of this traffic committee. I don't think it's a reflection of who's on the traffic committee. Maybe it's the processes. Looking forward to see how we go on this next journey of our traffic committee. Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor Thomas, and I guess your intent is to bring them up to speed, so thank you. Councillor Wales.
Yeah, a good point, Councillor Thomas. I can remember some time ago that there was the local highway patrol sergeant. Can you hear me? Am I coming? Yeah, there was the local highway patrol sergeant from Albury used to come to the traffic meetings as a bloke from Holden there, but they also have the local sergeant from Cora who would attend as well. So it wants something changed for sure. I agree, definitely. That's all. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's so. I'll put it all in favour. Against.
All right.
Carried. All right. We'll now move over to item number 13, 13.1, verbal reports from delegates. Do we have any verbal reports, councillors? Councillor Longmire.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
As a delegate, at the delegates report, the Australian Livestock Sale Yards Association had an executive committee meeting on the 24th of July, which I actually sit on the executive committee. The biggest concern, obviously, in all facets of sale yard selling is the COVID, interruptions everywhere. And could I say at this point in time that I attended the opportunity out here last Monday for our local sale, and it's very well appropriated under requirements and regulations by the staff out there. They're doing an excellent job, and plenty of comments to come back from both buyers and also agents, how it's appropriated. So commendation there for what the activity is by our staff out there. And so the concern within the industry is there has been 3 abattoirs closed in Victoria and around Melbourne, and it has lessened the buyers, but in some instances, the wholesalers have taken up the slack. So we're probably apportioning 50-50 between New South Wales buyers and Victorian buyers at the moment. And through the numbers that have been attained out here, 2 weeks ago was 20,000 sheep and lambs. Last Monday was down to about 10,000. A number of things that are appropriating that. One is talking to an agent last night. There's been good rain up in the middle of New South Wales, so the number of opportunities for store sheep to come down to be fattened in this area because of the great growth we've had has lessened. Farmers are withholding that opportunity for sale of sheep back this way. And the other one is that, quite interesting, on Monday there was a B-double 4-decker pulled in with all bar one pen of about 40 sheep loaded. Those sheep had been picked up on farm. So there is now a happening where on-farm contracts are coming forward, bypassing the sale yard auction system. This is an interesting one because going forward, that might progress in a bigger number, which will lessen the number of sheep and lambs going through our sale yard. If I may, also in the report, submit and table at council the financial statements to the end of June 30 for council's appropriation, and if I can table that to the general manager.
Thank you, Councillor Longley. Excellent report. Any other verbal reports there, councillors? And I'll move them together. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, like my fellow councillors, we've received and actioned a lot of correspondence or phone calls in and around the border closures. Once again, I'd like to commend council key staff for supporting me through that. It was a bit rough last week, but anyway, we got there. So hopefully with our link and as we mentioned earlier, we're getting there. I can see that we are getting there. So thanks for that. I attended a virtual meeting, but no one else was on the virtual meeting. So thank you to Councillor Whitechurch and Jared, who were actually at the meeting through the technology called FaceTime. I was actually able to be in a meeting with Dr. Rynan. I'm probably getting his spelling wrong and his citation incorrect, so I'm sorry about that. It was an opportunity where we got to have a look at the background and the plans for the multifunctional medical centre that is being proposed for Corowa. And I thought it was really exciting that they're including some facilities for the Aramanth Foundation. And as you know, the Aramanth Foundation is very dear to Federation Council and the work that it does for our communities, and that is broadening because it's going all the way up to Urana now with their work. So I thought that was exciting. There's only one limiting factor, obviously, to include Aramanth is some funding. So, you know, if we can support them in that endeavour to gain a permanent home, I think it's very important. It is just to be citated that there was mentioned in the room that at that particular meeting, I don't know whether Councillor Whitechurch might have commentary around it, about a service, a pickup service in terms of transport for our Corowa residents, and maybe that wasn't being utilised because funds were being held in Albury, and that probably needs to be taken up with our local member, Mr. Justin Clancy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any further reports there,
Councillor
councillors?
Moore?
Councillor Law.
Yeah. We had our first face-to-face meeting for the Ageing Well Committee. We met at the chocolate factory where we were able to distance and hold our meeting. It was really good. We're working very hard on the next Seniors Week and what we're going to do for that. We're going to run it over a fortnight, we think, and we have another meeting coming up next Monday, and that will also be face-to-face, I'm hoping, unless the rules and regulations change before then. We're putting a lot of work into the ageing well and looking after our older communities.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Excellent. Councillors, any other verbal reports? If not, can I get a mover, please? Who would like to move those reports? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 14, correspondence requiring council action for information. The first item there is 14.1, Narrandera Shire water allocation. They're seeking support from Narendra Shire, council's position seeking an increase in the allocation of agricultural water in the southern Murray-Darling Basin, and a copy of the letter is attached. I think I could probably go in a block here. 14.2 is the Murray. Councillor Thomas, would you like to deal with each one separately?
If I could, if there was anyone who'd like to talk against that, they're quite welcome to, but I'd like to talk to each one individually if possible.
That's fine. So we have at 14.1, did you want to make a comment there?
Well, I just think that we need to support Narendra Shire Council in their endeavour and their request, considering that our own irrigators have started off the season with 2%. And as you would be well aware, we've already moved a recommendation along those lines at one of our previous council meetings to advocate on the behalf of our irrigators. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. So we've got, can I have a seconder, please, for that? Seconded by Councillor Longmire. Any further questions or comments, councillors?
So just for clarity, recommendation to support, or that council, support Narendra Shire Council and their request for an increase in the allocation of water for agriculture in the southern Murray-Darling Basin.
Yes, thank you.
Happy with that, mover and seconder? I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. 14.2 is the Murray-Darling Basin Association, the MDA Delegates Report, May 2020, for tabling at council. And a copy of this report is within the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder for that one firstly, please? Moved by Councillor
I'm happy to.
Longmire. Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Question or comment, councillors? Councillor Thomas.
Just to make people aware, or community aware, that the MDA AGM is coming up, and they've sent out a draft format for that AGM. Obviously, under the circumstances, Region 2 was to be hosting, which is out of Shepparton. Unfortunately, we won't be able to gather as a whole, but there is opportunity for us to join Region 1 in Albury and still sit in as a virtual, which I think is exciting, because then you still get that connection. But if you ever have an opportunity to look at some of the key presenters for that upcoming AGM, they have got some dynamic people on the board, on the run, like Mick Kelty could be coming and presenting. How exciting is that? Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Any further comments there or questions?
So a recommendation that council note the MDA Delegates Report for May 2020.
Yep.
Longmire and Thomas.
Longmire and Thomas, Darling Association, Region 1, holding a copy of minutes of their meeting held on the 12th of February 2020, and a copy of the minutes is included in the agenda. Can I have a move for that one, please, councillors? Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Meagle. Any questions or comments there? Councillor Thomas, it looks like you've got a burning question.
It's just more of a comment. I noticed in Councillor Thurley's citation and record is that he's made comment around possibly getting the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists to come and meet with the MDA. Look, they have a huge impact on some of the governmental decisions that have been made in the past. And I think if we get an invitation to attend this roundtable discussion, we need, it's highly recommended we grab that seat at that table, just even if it is just as an observer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any further questions or comments from the council?
So recommendation that council note the minutes of the Region 1 Murray-Darling Association meeting 12th February 2020.
Did you want to add on to that, Councillor Thomas, your last comment?
I think really putting out an expression of interest to Region 1 that we'd be quite keen to engage if they could get the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists to the region. What a great opportunity that we'd like to attend. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Councillor. We're pretty right with that.
Yeah, council put an expression of interest to MDA Region 1 to participate in the forum with the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists.
Thank you. That's in there, Councillor Thomas. If there's nothing further, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. And now we'll move on to 14.4 Riverina Regional Library Advisory Committee. A copy of their minutes for their meeting held on 22nd of April 2020. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Law. Thomas? Any questions or comments here, councillors? Councillor Thomas? You look like you have. No.
Yeah, I do. Just in follow up from that committee, which myself and Councillor Law are delegates on, we've received a notification, and I think I would like to take this opportunity if Federation Council could write to a couple of really key regional library service personnel who are retiring. So there's two that are retiring from that essential service after 42 years of being in their positions with the Riverina Regional Library Service. So one is Mrs. Lynn Hackett, and she, looked after our cataloguing and our technical services and our collection and resource management. So if we could write and congratulate her on her 42 years of service and wish her all the best in her retirement. And the other one is Mr. Brian Plummer. Now, his key role was our mobile library services. As you know, the mobile library visits numerous centres in our shire. So he is also retiring after 42 years. So if we can congratulate him as well. And on a very local level, we've got our own Louise Parr, who has been with Federation Council, former Cora Shire, for 20 years, and she's just retired as well. So if we can pull together some key letters, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Had made notes and certainly support those letters to go to those staff, including our own Louise Parr. And just a note on that success of that Riverina Regional Library and obviously their staff within, but that's an example, probably the biggest example I've seen of a Section 355 committee. And that's ran out of Wagga Council on behalf of all the member councils. So terrific organisation. Yeah.
Well, thank you. If there's nothing further there, councillors, I'll put that one. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Would someone like to move to suspend and move into closed session?
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Longley. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.